Hey everyone, welcome to D Time, Season 1, Episode 14, Hygiene 101. I'm really interested in this topic and hearing what our guest for the day has to say, and excited for you guys to hear it. But Hygiene 101, I think it's something that, I don't think gets talked about enough. Proper hygiene, and I don't think there's enough time to really delve into all of the details. But I know it's something that as a man, I can only speak for guys. I think it's something that gets lost and something that's important just to have basic hygiene and understand what it is. And I think you hear that or you hear it talked about, and there can be kind of a sense of shame or uncomfortability with the topic, but it's important. It's something that rarely gets spoken about, and I'm excited to kind of dive into the topic with someone who I know this means a lot to and has a lot of strong opinions and great insights into it. Good friend Stevie Bullock. She's going to share about her thoughts on hygiene and just the practicals. I think, from my perspective, coming from with the topic, having practicals is key. I remember someone, I forget who shared this with me, but when I was a younger man, I played basketball a lot. Like guys, most guys, I should say, played sports or roughhoused a lot and was on the move a lot. And I didn't have a car at the time, so I was walking to a lot of places. And in the Northwest, you don't really have to worry about heat all that much. And so someone gave me the advice that, hey, you should always carry extra pair of socks, extra deodorant with you in your backpack, because you never know when you're gonna need to freshen up or need to apply some deodorant. And that's something that stuck with me to this day. If you see me, you'll find deodorant and extra socks in my bag, just to be able to be prepared, because me, I don't want to be in a situation where my feet are stinking or my arms pits are stinking. Oh, and another tip, gum. Having a pack of gum I have it always in the car now, because you need to freshen up. Especially in Seattle, all the coffee that we drink here, you can have coffee breath, and you're gonna need to freshen up. So those are just some little things that I do, but I know that Steve is gonna share a bunch of other tips that we may or may not think about. And I think it's important to be mindful or aware of hygiene, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. I think it's something that is a great tool to have, and honestly, in a broader scope, it's a health issue. If you don't take care of your hygiene, that it can have impacts health wise later on down the line. So, like I said, I'm excited for you guys to hear what she has to say. If you have any hygiene tips, some hacks that you have, send us a line, leave us a message in the comments. You can follow this podcast at DTime Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and send us an email at dtimepodcast@gmail.com with all of your hygiene hacks and tips and tricks that you've learned or come up with over the years. So stick around for part 2, guys, and we'll be right back. Peace. Welcome back to D Time. I'm here sitting with a very, very, very illustrious guest, Stevie Bull. Stevie, thank you for taking the time out to join me in talking about this subject.
Yes, yes. Thank you for having me on this podcast. This is my very first one ever.
Awesome, awesome. So before we dive into Hygiene 101, why don't you take a couple minutes to tell the listeners about yourself?
Yeah. Okay. So, like David said, my name is Stevie. I am 31 years old. I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, but lived a couple places. I've lived in, like I said, Arizona, South Dakota, Kentucky, Georgia, Portland, Seattle, where I reside now. I currently work 2 jobs and go to school for, and am in school with hopes to get into the nursing program. Um, Definitely want to either work in the as a travel nurse, possibly be able to just go around the world, around the United States, or always wanted to work for FEMA during any type of natural disaster as a nurse to just basically be able to help in a time of need and crisis. I think that's where you get the most experience, is when you're out on the field and when you're getting to experience different cultures and situations, and you're not always in a setting where any and everything is available to you. So definitely want to go into the nursing field somewhere that's a little more high speed and high stress to really increase my skills in the medical field, out in the field. Also a one of 6 kids, but I am the favorite. And yeah, I'm just living here in now Linwood, Washington. And yeah, that's me. Love to travel, love avocados, love Halloween, dressing up, all that good stuff. So that's a bit about me.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. So obviously hygiene, it's a big topic.
Mm-hmm.
But for you, when you hear the word hygiene, what, what do you think of when you hear that word?
Yeah, so I definitely think of overall health. I think a lot of times when people think of hygiene, they just think of, oh, what does my body smell like? But it's not just your body; it's like your oral cavity, so your mouth, your teeth, your tongue, different things like that, gums. Also, your living space. I think people can often forget about like how your living space can affect your hygiene. Are you washing your clothes often? Are you airing out your room, changing your sheets? If you have, I know when I played sports, that was a big one. Like you're constantly in certain clothes and you're sweating. So it's like, do the pits of that, that shirt that you have, is it time to throw it out? So I think people don't think about hygiene in a whole aspect. And that's definitely what I think of is that body, the oral, and just your living space.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a big point. Even for me, I don't even think of it in that concept. So, talking about hygiene, what kinds of things surprise you the most when it comes to, hygiene, or even, how people approach it?
Yeah, so I would definitely say the lack of personal awareness. Like, I think of when I was younger, just the time that my mom would take out of her day to, make sure we knew how to properly take care of ourselves and just clean ourselves and just make sure that we looked appropriate. Even just going to the doctor, the dentist, wherever you need to go to. I know different people have different bodies, different diets can cause you to have different scents and odors, different things like that. I know for myself, I have psoriasis, so even just making sure that, I'm trying different shampoos or whatever the case it may be, medications to make sure I have my psoriasis as manageable as possible. But I think the going back to the lack of awareness, I think a lot of people, it shocks me that they're not aware of different scents that they may have, bodily scents, or just not being aware of what does and doesn't work for them. Deodorant is there to ensure that we don't have an odor, to kind of slow that stench down or stop it completely and, keep your armpits dry, whatever it is your deodorant does. But I think that people forget that not all scents work with all body types. And that just because a scent worked, a couple months ago, it may not still work now because once again, our diets change, our bodies change, pheromones, different things like that. And also just like, as far as deodorants, soaps also. I know for myself, I cannot use pomegranate soap or certain soaps in that nature because it has a sweet musk smell. It's not a pleasant smell at all. So I don't want to smell like sweet musk all day. But I think people just don't take the time to be like, hey, I know this is soap or this is deodorant and it's meant to make me clean, but does it work for my body? And I don't know if people really ask themselves that, or if they do ask themselves that, are they going forward and taking the action to make sure that they don't use that item again and just be more aware of what does work for them.
That's a good point. So, in the first part, I talked a lot about kind of what you mentioned, just awareness and things that you can do to kind of ensure that you're not in a spot where you can't help yourself in hygienically. So I always carry, deodorant and an extra pair of socks,
Yeah.
things like that. So from your perspective, what are some hygiene hacks that people can do? Not like a cure-all, but what are some things that people can do to kind of help get them on the right track and on the right track of hygiene?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked me this because this is literally it's literally one of my favorite things to tell people, or I guess educate people on, just whenever. Like I said earlier, I like to travel, love to travel. And one thing I just really learned from traveling is a running joke I have with myself is that I have an airport ministry because for whatever reason I have missed so many planes in my life while sitting at the gate. And so, my bag is already on the plane and it has gone to my destination. And it only took one time for me to realize, like, hey, I don't have any extra anything and I'm going to be here overnight. And so when I do get on the plane, I'm going to be, not feeling my freshest.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest thing I always tell people is to always have a travel bag. Even if you're not traveling out of state, you could be, going to work or, anywhere that you're going to be gone from, your house or anything like that, a significant amount of time, anything over, I say 5 hours, definitely have a travel bag. And I know what I have in my travel bag is definitely at least 2 pairs of underwear. For women, you have to have, your feminine hygiene products. If you go to any store, you can get travel size items. So just having a discreet bag, travel size items.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, those items I just listed. Also having toothbrush, toothpaste, mouthwash, gum, deodorant, even a couple meds because, you may have, let's just throw it out there. Someone might have halitosis and maybe they take medication for it, because it is it is something that can be diagnosed. Even having some medication, two pills in there. I mean, get you through the day or whatever. So you're not skipping out on those medications either, because that also falls into hygiene. Definitely having that bag wherever you go, especially when you fly, having it on you. Even having little travel size soaps that you can use. You don't have to necessarily have a washcloth because you can always use, paper towel, your hand, whatever the case may be. And what else do you have? Oh, and the biggest thing, I am a huge advocate for this. Growing up, I played a lot of sports. I played a lot of sports, and I would always, always, always have these tournaments, and I sweat hard, I do. So my great grandmother would always be like, "Hey, you guys need to take your shower, but you need to kind of wash up with vinegar." And so she would say, scrub your body, use vinegar, then use your soap. And she was like, you be fresh all day. It cuts foot smells, everything. And so I would have these long tournaments. I would, do what she said, use the vinegar, and then take a shower with my soap. And I would not stink all day. And last year, 2 years ago, I went to Manila, Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone's ever been to the Philippines, it is so hot. I don't care how good you smell, you think you smell, Manila will bring out the funk in you. And so I had these little, apple cider vinegar wipes mixed with a little bit of water. And midway through the day, I'd have to wipe that underneath my arm, wash my arms, wipe that underneath my arms, put some deodorant back on and people were like, well, how are you staying fresh? And it was definitely the vinegar. So I would say, do not stray away from home remedies. I'm definitely an advocate for vinegar. It stays in my house. But I think even finding, those things, but definitely also checking with your doctor to make sure that you're able to use these different items because different people's skin reacts and you may not be able to use all the home remedies.
That's awesome. Yeah, this is very useful. I'm taking notes as we speak. Awesome. So say if someone came to you, right, and they're maybe struggling with, wanting to improve their hygiene, what kind of tips would you give them? Not necessarily hacks, but what advice would you give them to someone who wants to improve their hygiene?
Yeah, I would definitely, if they're looking for an overall how to fix it, I always say, if you think it's something that's outside of the norm, like let's say you're brushing your teeth, you're brushing your tongue, all that great stuff, and you're still experiencing bad breath, then I would say, hey, take it a step further and definitely go to your primary care doctor and figure out maybe there is something there medically that you need to get addressed, that you may be doing all the right steps, but it may be something medical that you need to have checked out. For someone who doesn't have anything medically, I would just say learn your body, be more aware of what scents do and don't work for you. And even going throughout the day. And, me personally, if I find a product that works well, I take a picture of it. I have Team Android, and I have my little Google photo thing that it automatically uploads to, excuse me. And I keep anything that works very well for me. I keep it in my Google photos, and I can go back to it because, you know, a lot of times the products that I use that work the best, they're not like your Dove or your Secret. They're not the names that are out there. They're more so the up and coming, or maybe they're not as popular. So I want to make sure that I always have it in the back of my mind, like, oh, I can go back. This product worked well, or this one didn't. So I would definitely say going to the doctor if you need to go a step further, and also just being bodily conscious of what works for you and what does not work for you.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think this episode is going to be a big hit. You know, I think this is a area a lot of folks secretly struggling, and don't know it, or maybe they know it and just, kind of embarrassed. So thank you for sharing, Stevie. One thing I always like to ask everyone that I chat with is, what's the best piece of advice that someone's given you? And it doesn't have to do with this topic. It can be, about anything.
Anything. Oh, the best advice. There's so much advice out there. I love to get my advice from like elderly people because they've seen so much. Mm-hmm. I want to say never pass up a mint, but the best advice is, okay. So because, like I said, I want to go into the nursing field. A lady once told me, because I told her, hey, this is the field I want to go into. This is the specialty, so on and so forth. And she just said, never stay in a nursing field longer than 3 years. And she told me this because she was like, you get stuck in this one spot and you stop learning because it becomes automatic. It becomes muscle memory, and you stop learning at that point. And I think you can use that for anything, never stay in one spot for too long, because it just becomes muscle memory and you're not really learning anything. It no longer becomes your passion. You're just doing it because you can, versus, challenging yourself daily and growing daily. So I think that was probably the best advice, because even now, like with the whole wanting to go through FEMA, one natural disaster can be in a state, and the next natural disaster can be in a different country, and you're just constantly learning. So it provides that variety. So I would say, always keep it fresh and never stay in one spot too long.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great advice. Well, yes, thank you again, Stevie. If for those listening, if you have any questions you want to send Stevie's way, I'll put her info in the comments, or if you have your own health hacks or hygiene hacks that you have, feel free to share them. And you can follow this podcast at DTime Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and dtimepodcast@gmail.com. So Stevie, thank you again. Thank you so much.
And you're so welcome. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure.